Welcome to PJ Speaks, your everyday commentary podcast. We talk about life, money, and other topics. Sit back and enjoy the show.
This is your host, PJ. So I have a interesting topic that I wanted to talk about on this episode of the podcast. So today we're going to talk about what do you bring to the table, dating in the Black community beyond money, looks, and status. This is a conversation that I feel like happens a lot, especially in my friend group. So I wanted to okay, well, let me see what can I offer or offer a different perspective on this conversation. So I have y'all, if you've been following for a while, even though I just started back this week, I do my points. I always give 5 major points. So we're going to go through each point. We're going to talk about it a little bit and we're going to bring it back home. Now, the first point we're going to make or we're going to talk about is defining the table. What does bringing something to the table actually mean? Is it financial stability, emotional support, peace, loyalty, ambition, or something else? And a lot of times when I hear people say, oh, what do you bring to the table? Is oftentimes used as a diss to what somebody has that you lack. For instance, if I have more education, the conversation would be, oh, what do you bring to the table outside your education? Clearly, you don't even bring the education to the table. Oh, well. I heard somebody get quiet. I thought somebody got quiet. But, or the money. But oftentimes, I feel like there's a double standard when we talk about dating in this whole conversation. So, and I have to think, which is, moving in a little bit into point number 2 of the double standard in dating between, Black men, Black women, and how we're held to different societal standards. But looking just based into that question of defining what that table is, because that table could look like anything. It really could. It could look like you having your own home. It could look like I said, your education. It could look like your finances. It could be your personality. What do you bring to the table is a very broad question. However, like I said, it's oftentimes used to diss somebody else or to say, oh, what you have doesn't matter because I don't have it. So I'm the prize. You should want me. No, you should meet me halfway in some aspects of dating. But there are very stark differences in dating between Black men and Black women. And that stems from white male patriarchy. But I'm not going to dive too deep in that today. But our relationships and how we base relationships oftentimes stem from what we see our counterparts do, what we see these couples do that are in contrast to ourselves. For instance, like saying, okay, well, Cheryl and her husband, that he pays everything. He pays all the bills. He does everything. I don't have to take. She doesn't have to take care of anything. She doesn't go to work. She doesn't do anything. She's a homemaker. However, my friend Rochelle is, maybe going 50-50 with her husband, even though they are both doing good for themselves. They have their own bank accounts. They have a joint bank account. They have all these things. However, Rochelle works and has to, and goes 50-50 with her husband. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think oftentimes when we get caught up we talk about the expectations in dating, you are getting caught up on what somebody else has that you feel like you don't have. If you have somebody that loves and cares for you, even though they don't necessarily make all this money, but however, they do pay their fair share in your relationship, you should focus on that. You should worry about that. It shouldn't matter, but it does to a lot of people. Again, it shouldn't, but it does. So now we're going to talk about, how social media versus reality. So social media has created some very unrealistic expectations of dating and relationships and value in those relationships and in dating. I say all the time, what you see online is not often the truth. For some people, it is. For the majority, and I would say 80% of people, what they post on social media is not the truth. So you can't get caught up in, oh, I saw this couple online. They're traveling. They're having so much fun. We never travel. We never do the things. Half the time, those people, their trip was paid for by somebody else. That was a sponsored trip. Of course, y'all not doing the same things. You got to work for your money. Okay. Okay. I feel like I hurt somebody's feelings when I said that, but it's the truth. We see things on social media all the time. I see a Mercedes GLE all the time that I would love to have. Am I driving that? No. Do I still have a nice car? Yes. Two. But the thing about it is what social media is presenting to you is not the reality of your situation. You're getting caught up with, at the end of the day, you're getting caught up with what you don't have and you're not appreciating what you do have. And that's causing those problems in your relationships. That's causing the disdain or this bitterness that we feel when we have this conversation of what do you bring to the table. Because how do you even answer that question correctly? Really, how do you even answer that question without presenting yourself as in the things that you've accomplished for yourself? But you can't ask that question and in the same breath diminish those things that I feel I bring to the table and you don't have them. I mean, I'm just saying, I got my notes in the background. I'm gonna stick to the script. But it's the truth. Like, how you gonna have that conversation and you, you don't even bring what you say? Okay, I'm gonna be quiet. I'm finna get mad. I mean, I'm finna get mad because it's the truth. Like, it's a pointless argument. And are we doing? And this is point four. Are we doing character over credentials? Can qualities like communication, consistency, accountability, emotional maturity, and faith outweigh income, appearance, or career status? Yes, but that's not the case for everybody. And a lot of times, I see a lot of women, a lot of my friends, they want this certain aspect of a man. However, they don't bring those qualities, some of those qualities themselves. You want a man who's financially stable. You want a lot of debt. You want a man who's Christian and goes to church. You don't even like hearing the pastor talk. You don't open the Bible not one time. You want somebody into fitness. You want somebody that cares about their body. However, you don't. So, oftentimes, and it's not to say that you can't compromise in a relationship or compromise with somebody, or okay, this person doesn't have this, I have this certain thing, let me make up the lack in my relationship or make up the lack in general. You can do that. You definitely can. It's never going to be a problem. It's never going to be an issue. However, you can't expect, here we go with expectations. You can't expect somebody to want to come into your life if the things that they have, you're not trying to work towards, or you don't want yourself. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. It's really not. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? I mean, I'm sitting here telling you what I'm telling you, but it is what it is at the end of the day. The conversation that we're trying to have, or we're having when we ask this question, is pointless at the end of the day because it's coming not necessarily from a place of love. It's coming from a place of bitterness. You're upset about what you don't have, and you're expressing that on somebody else. That's it. That's all it is. However, are we gonna take in consideration that person's character, or are we strictly going on this person's credentials? Because credentials on paper can look a certain way. For instance, you apply to a job. On paper, you look a certain way. You get a job, and we find out you can't do your job. Again, so let's just say, okay, this man that I know may not be as financially successful as I am, but he is a leader. He can provide in his own way. He's emotionally intelligent. He cares about you. If you have kids, he cares about you and the kids. He wants to be the husband that you want. However, he's lacking in one area. Same for you. He might, you might meet this chick, y'all chatting or whatever, and let's say she's lacking that consistency that you feel that she needs to have with, let's say, like her fitness goals or whatever. Mind you, that's a big topic for me because I've been pushing myself in the gym lately. But that's not to say that that man can't work with that woman on getting her consistency up or getting her consistency back. Are those things something that you can work on? That goes into appearance. I can I can overcome certain things. I can move past certain things. Emotional maturity is also a very big one that a lot of people scapegoat. And it's like, okay, you have this partner, they look amazing. However, they can't do anything for you emotionally because they were spoiled their whole lives. Their parents did everything for them. So when we trade one thing, we get another, and when we get another thing, we still want more. We still want to trade it for something else. At the end of the day, when do you stop and appreciate what do you have? Or when do you say, I'm gonna let love come to me in the way that I want love to come to me? When do we have that conversation? When are we gonna say, hey, I love came to me in this form. I'm going to accept love in this form. What are things that are non-negotiables for me? Or what are things that I thought were non-negotiable, but I can work with? I think that's the better question you should be asking yourself. And my last point, because I'm trying to make this podcast short and sweet. I want to go ahead and get it out and, just have some feeler moments on this whole conversation. You know, building together or arriving ready. Should people expect a finished product, or is the healthiest mindset finding someone willing to grow and build with you? I feel like that was a lot in one breath. That was a very mature statement. Are we building together? Are we arriving ready? And I struggle with that. Like, I struggle with wanting, and like in my past relationships, wanting partners that were already ready. And I wasn't nowhere near it, ever, ever. I was never nowhere near it until now, and my boo knows. But I was and am ready, and that's why love found me. However, are you expecting somebody else to show up with their own house, their own car, their own crib, their own education, their own money, and if that's what you want, cool. But at the same time, are you willing, or do you want somebody that you can actually grow with? Okay, I came in at this point in my life. You came in at this point in your life. There's goals that I want for myself. There's goals you want for yourself. Are these things that we both can work on, or are these things that are non-negotiables that we can't even discuss or have a conversation about? Again, are we arriving ready? And I truly say nobody is ready for dating. Nobody comes to a situation 100% ready to go. Let's go get married the next day. Let's do this. If you do, they is love bombing you, and you need to watch out. But again, are we arriving to this conversation saying, okay, I need you to be XYZ day one? Or you may not be XYZ, but you an 8 out of 10, and I can, them other 2 points, we can work on them 2 points. We can get you up to that 10. Like, so what are we doing? Like, I honestly want to know, what are we doing? What conversation are we having? Where are we going with this situation? So bringing it all back in to kind of wrap things up and finish it out. Are we looking at the person for who they are and what they have and what they do and what they can do or the potential they have? Or are we chalking it up to these are your credentials? I need you to look a certain way on paper, and that's it. You will never be able to let love come to you and have that, what the church people say, agape love. Oh, I ain't heard that word in so long. But, you'll never have that, what they said, that Ruth and Boaz. But, you're never going to get that love if you're not willing at the end of the day to sacrifice something. You don't have to sacrifice all of yourself for another person, but you will, regardless of the situation, even if this person is 100% perfect, you will sacrifice something. So I guess to end this podcast, I'm going to end it with a question. What are you willing to sacrifice to get the love that you want? Or what can you give up to get the love that you want? And I think I'm going to end it here. So I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in. There will be a new show each week. And make sure to follow PJ on social media at The Black Scientist. That's at THABLK Scientist. See you next time. This has been PJ Speaks.